The Town of Los Gatos Planning Commission meeting of October 25, 2023 is now called to order. As we usually do, I'll ask that staff make a presentation on the town's rules of demeanor and decorum.
Thank you, Chair. For the benefit of the community, the Town of Los Gatos asks that you follow the town's meeting guidelines while attending town meetings and treat everyone with respect and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask that you silence your devices if you haven't already done so. That would be appreciated. And we'll begin with the roll call. Commissioner Raspy. Here. Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Burnett. And Commissioner Janoff.
Here.
Thank you. So we'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, which tonight will be led by Commissioner Burnett.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a few preliminary remarks to make to the audience based on our town council's direction. First, during tonight's meeting, any person desiring to speak must first be recognized by the chair. All participants must speak only from the mic or when they're called on in Zoom. All public comments shall be directed to the commission as a body and not to the audience. No person other than the commissioners, staff, and the person having the floor are permitted to enter into the discussion. And no member of the public is allowed to speak a second time on a specific item. And to assure the opportunity of all public members to speak, there's no yielding of time to another speaker. So as the Planning Commission conducts the meeting this evening, we encourage active participation by the public, which is essential to our democracy and to the important work of the Planning Commission. Public input is very much welcomed and is always considered. The public's participation can occur in several ways. Written communications about agenda items can be submitted to the staff in advance of the meeting. And during our meeting, there are two opportunities for members of the public to speak. During the verbal communications of period of our meeting, an individual may speak on any matter that is not on the agenda for tonight. And during the hearings on our agenda items 2 and 3 tonight, any member of the public may speak on those items. And you'll be advised when those opportunities occur. If you wish to address the commission tonight during either the verbal communication or verbalization time, or when we consider agenda items 2 and 3, please raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or for those who are here in person, complete a speaker card, which are available in front of your benches if you haven't already done so. We ask that you print your name clearly, or you can just state your, write down your initials if you're speaking anonymously. When you're asked to speak, I ask that you come forward to the microphone and speak directly into it because the meeting is being recorded. Also, when you're called to speak, please state your name and your address for the record or indicate that you're speaking anonymously. In fairness to all members of the public who wish to speak, it's necessary that we limit your time to 3 minutes. So now we get to the verbal communication section of our agenda. And we will allow members of the public to make statements if they wish on any matter that's not on the agenda for tonight's meeting, and staff will announce when your 3 minutes are up. And we do have a card from Mr. Enns, is it? Joseph Enns? Please come forward.
Joseph Enns, representing Friends of the Los Gatos Creek, working with Mariko Sahak, ex-mayor, try to keep the waterways clean, and that's very treasured here. It's probably, I think a lot of people are valued as a resource. Mariko has EPA experience. I'm trying to organize people basically to respect it and Actually, there's somebody living in the tunnel right now, and they hit me over the head with a 2x4. I'm a veteran, and I have to. Nothing against Jamie. Jamie's doing great. I really love the police department, but I'm just here to help. And I don't know if any of you know Superior Court Julie. I'm not going to front her out, but she said the town needs a lot of help, so I'm working with Andrea Pervetti. I guess, are you Andrea? No? So I'm just getting 3 minutes of airtime is what I'm doing here, basically. Because we know, we all want to make the town, it's a beautiful town. I grew up here, went to Westmont High, 71, Cal degrees, worked at a police department over the hill, blah, 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 going to law school. And I know a lot of these homeless people, and I'm getting beat up now, and I got to swear in as a disaster awareness response team person. I don't do drugs anymore. I've got a girlfriend. My life, that's what happened. My life changed. Oh, I still can ramble for another minute. I'm getting a little too comfortable up here. That's a good thing, because I'm going to just keep it to the point. That's about all. I wish I could say more, but I think people are turning on the Middle East conference. I knew once I got my stuff together that it would be the end of the world, or something like that. That's not funny, because we got to have humor. Because me almost getting killed, having a brain hemorrhage. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a. I can't cuss anymore because of my girlfriend. And who am I going to explain this to if you're not going to marry me and stuff? What woman did this to me? I mean, this is the funny part of it, because I'm part Navajo Indian, and we got like a minute left. Try to get the whole. I guess my outlook is red. Is everything's spiritual. We're only here a couple of winters, like you can't like. And Einstein said, "You know why time exists? Because so everything doesn't happen at once." I could go on so. It's not funny. This is what I got PTSD from my Vietnam service. Could I throw that in there too? So I'm a veteran, 70-year-old veteran, getting the shit kicked out of me. I don't even know if this guy's out of town and I'm hiding. We got a good drone program. Sorry, cats. All the cops know me, so I'm going to be signing on. And I don't care what the homeless meth heads, which this person is, but he's schizophrenic and probably shouldn't be on meth and living in the tunnel behind St. Luke's. Bye, Mama.
Oh, would you please stand by for possible questions, sir? There may be questions from commissioners.
I didn't think I'd call back for an encore. But,
Are there any commission questions? No. I want to
it
thank
doesn't
you.
relate to you at all. I just wanted some airtime to get it out there. Now somebody other than the normal idiots up there. Oops, can I say that?
We very much appreciate your comments.
Well,
You coming
yeah,
down
but I'm
here
going to be
tonight.
talking with the police and everything. I got all this other stuff to do. So thanks a lot for your service.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you all.
And do we have anyone on Zoom for public communications?
Thank you, Chair. I do not see any hands raised for verbal communications. Let's give it a couple seconds. No hands are raised, Chair.
Thanks for checking. And so we'll move on to the consent calendar. And tonight we have one item, being the approval of our draft minutes of the meeting of September 13th. Before the Planning Commission acts on the consent calendar, any member of the commission may request that the item be removed. Are there any such requests? I don't see any. So seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Hanson, thank you. Discussion? If not, please raise your hands if you're in support of the motion. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. So we'll now move on to public hearings, and we have item 2 tonight, where we are asked to consider an appeal of the Development Review Committee's decision to approve a lot line adjustment application in accordance with California Government Code Section 66412D for 3 adjoining lots on property zone R120 located at 17200 Los Robles Way, APNs 532-36-075, 76 and 77, and a lot line adjustment application M23001. Per the town's attorney, the DRC decision is statutorily exempt from CEQA as a ministerial approval in accordance with CEQA guidelines 15268, and the application is only for ministerial approval for lot line adjustment pursuant to Section 66412D of the Subdivision Map Act, and I know we'll have some discussion about that. And the property owners are Duran Goodell trustee and Mark Van Canel applicant. The applicant is Tony Janes, and the appellant is Allison Steer. May I have a show of hands from the commissioners who have visited the property? Thank you. And are there any disclosures? I don't see any. So, Mr. Staffy, I understand you'll be giving a report from the staff tonight.
Yes, thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. Before you is an appeal of a DRC decision to approve a lot line adjustment for 3 adjoining lots at 17200 Los Robles Way. The application, as mentioned previously, is statutorily exempt from CEQA as outlined in the staff report. The application is only for ministerial approval of a lot line adjustment pursuant to Section 66412D of the Subdivision Map Act. There's an extensive history associated with this application and property, which is outlined in the report. The current application is proposed to be considered in accordance with California Government Code Section 66412D. The application proposes to take 3 adjacent parcels and reconfigure their lot lines. The existing lot configuration has several nonconformities, all of which would be remedied with this application. And it's important to note that no construction is proposed with this application. Pursuant to Government Code Section 66412D, the required determinations for approval of a lot line adjustment application are that the lot line adjustment is between 4 or fewer existing adjoining lots, where the land taken from one parcel is added to an adjoining parcel, and where a greater number of parcels than originally existed is not thereby created, and that a local agency shall limit its review and approval to a determination of whether or not the parcels resulting from that lot line adjustment will conform to the local general plan, any applicable specific plan, any applicable coastal plan, which we don't have, and zoning and building ordinances. Exhibits 2 and 4 contained in the staff report packet contain a very detailed explanations as to how each of these determinations are made in this case. The DRC approved this application on August 15th, which was then appealed by an adjacent neighbor on August 22nd. The appeal, as provided in Exhibit 8, references several reasons to why the appeal should be granted, including CEQA review, general plan compliance, cul-de-sac review, as well as lot merger. The applicant has provided response letters to the appeal, which are included in the report as Exhibit 9 and in the addendum report from yesterday as Exhibit 10. And the staff report includes each of these appeal sections, followed by the applicant's responses, and then staff's analysis. So based on the reasons outlined in the report, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission make a motion to find that the approval of the lot line adjustment application is a ministerial project approval under CEQA. Find that the required determinations in Exhibit 2 regarding compliance with California Government Code Section 66412D are hereby adopted and confirmed, and deny the appeal, uphold the decision of the DRC, and approve application M23001, superseding the town's approval of the previous lot line adjustment application, with modified conditions of approval in Exhibit 3, the diagram showing existing and proposed parcel configurations in Exhibit 7, and all other related application materials and attachments. This concludes staff's presentation, and we, along with the town attorney, are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from commissioners? Commissioner Hanson, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank staff for the very detailed staff report. It was an excellent staff report that went through all of the issues and outlined what we need to consider. After reading through everything, since the staff and the town attorney have determined that this is a ministerial application, if that is in fact the case, and it is confirmed by the evidence in the staff report, is it even proper for us to be hearing this at the Planning Commission? Because we shouldn't be holding the applicant to a standard that's above the ministerial.
Thank you. I can address that. So the town code provides that the town's development review committee is responsible for approving applications for lot line adjustments. And what that approval consists of is making sure that all the elements of 66412D have been satisfied. The town code also provides that interested parties can appeal those decisions to the Planning Commission. And so the decision is properly before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission is being asked to determine whether the elements of 66412D have been satisfied. And then that's the primary consideration for the Planning Commission, was the lot line adjustment properly granted. And then an ancillary subject is whether or not the town should have done CEQA analysis in conjunction with that lot line adjustment. And staff's position is that the lot line adjustment is a ministerial approval in that there are no discretionary decisions to be made. The task before the decision makers is to confirm that each of the required elements of Government Code Section 66412D have been satisfied.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you.
Other questions by commissioners at this time? There's going to be a later opportunity. So we'll now open the public portion of the public hearing and give the appellant, and following that, the applicant, an opportunity to address the commission for up to 5 minutes. And let's see, we have, I don't have a card from the appellant, but that's Allison Steer.
We also do have the appellant's attorney on Zoom raising their hand.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Steer, who do you want to proceed first with? Okay, is that loud enough to get in the record?
That's fine. She stated that she'd like her attorney speaking on her behalf.
Okay, then if you'd please give us your name and present your thoughts. You have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Hello. I guess the video portion is being blocked. It doesn't really matter. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, we can. Okay. Well, my name is Bob Aknafisi, and I represent Ms. Steer in this appeal, as well as the ongoing case between the parties. As has been said, the lot line adjustment before you has been the subject of litigation, but let's be very clear that the only purpose for this lot line adjustment is to turn a currently substandard and unbuildable lot into one that can accommodate a residence. Staff and the applicant insist that the project is not subject to CEQA review because it's a ministerial approval, and that therefore the project, and also because the project doesn't include any plans for a building. As I will explain, your decision tonight in taking evidence and making findings will have substantial impact on how these lots will be developed, is subject to CEQA, and it's not ministerial in the sense that it requires exercise of judgment, and it will potentially impact the environment. So a few preliminary points. Staff previously on the same project concluded that the same lot line adjustment was discretionary but subject to a specific CEQA exemption. But now staff says the opposite is true, but has made no effort to explain why the same project a year ago was considered discretionary is now somehow magically turned into ministerial. But staff, applicant, and the town attorney cited a case, Sierra Club versus County and Napa, and claimed that this case conclusively proves that all lot line adjustments under 66412D are per se ministerial. But this isn't really true. That wasn't the issue before the court. The court was really looking at the particular regulation for Napa. But even there, you have to ask, well, this case is from 2012, is known to the town and to staff. Why was it so interpreted before? Now, one of the findings that the staff is putting before you today is a finding that the proposed lot line adjustment is consistent, that the intensity of the new development is consistent with the surrounding development and with the town at large. Now, clearly, this isn't a checkbox. You have to actually look at the intensity of this project, you look at the surrounding neighborhood and make a decision. And that decision requires exercise of judgment, which makes it not discretionary. Now, to the sort of the main argument, the main point I have to make in the limited time I have left. One of the requirements to ensure that the project is consistent with all applicable regulation is to change the access point to give the lots 2 and 3 frontage, because right now there is no frontage. Staff says that this will be through a offer of dedication of an easement for a future cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac would provide both access and therefore be able to provide frontage for lots 2 and 3, 40 feet for 2 and 30, and then 60 feet for 3. But make no mistake about it. For the cul-de-sac to be able to serve as frontage for these lots, it has to be a street. For it to be a street, it has to provide primary access to these lots. Therefore, by accepting the line drawn on the map for the cul-de-sac, you're essentially approving a new street. This street will require cutting down trees. It will require substantial grading, which you're not being told anything about. It's not just a line on the map. It will require to be built. Otherwise, you can make a finding that the lot line adjustment does comply with the frontage requirement. So even if in some abstract sense, you buy the argument that the lot line adjustment approval is itself exempt, approving this entrance, this street, which is a cul-de-sac, which clearly has potential impacts, is clearly not exempt because it's capable of significant environmental impacts.
Excuse me, your time is up, but commissioners may have questions for you. Oh, I'm sorry, and I didn't get your name.
Babak Nafisi. Naficy is how I spell my last name. First name, Babak.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And I'm informed by staff that you drafted a letter that was received late this afternoon. Is that correct?
Correct.
And are there copies available for the commissioners at this time?
It was emailed to commissioners, but I'm not present to hand it out to you, unfortunately.
Well, I understand that.
But it was emailed to the staff, to the clerk of the board of the commission, and individual commissioners.
Are you saying that the email was sent directly to the commissioners?
I believe so. Not by me personally, but I directed my assistant to do that. That's right.
All right.
Through the chair,
Yes.
if I may, this was an email that was sent to staff at 4 p.m. this afternoon, which is after the deadline for submittal of materials for the desk item, but it will be retained as part of the record for the application. But it, without having copies here tonight, it's not something we can provide to the Planning Commission at this time.
Okay, thank you for that. And then are there questions for the attorney from members of the commission? I don't see any. So let's see. We don't have any cards from, okay, so we'll now give the, let's see, we had the appellant's presentation. So now we'll move on to the applicant's presentation for up to 5 minutes, if you wish to do so. And I think we're going to hear from Mr. Jeans, who submitted a card.
And we also have Shannon Jones on Zoom, depending on which of you would like to speak.
I'll start if that's okay.
Yes, please do.
Commissioners. Okay, so why are we here? Interesting. I was wondering that myself this morning. DRC approved this once a year or so ago. You, as the council, as the commission, denied the appeal. The council then denied the second appeal. The council's denial was litigated. During the litigation, it was determined that the incorrect approval process had been used. So we went back to DRC using 66412D of the Subdivision Map Act, which is how all lot line adjustments are meant to be addressed. DRC approved this a second time, a month or so ago, and it's now been appealed to you, and hopefully not ad infinitum. Eventually, we hope to get to the end of this. So by 66412D, this is a ministerial process. So we have a few things to show you. And when we designed the three-lot layout, we had to make sure that we abided by all of the rules of 66412D. So, one, we had to show that the lot line adjustment is less than 4 lots. Well, I think we've done that. There's no increase in parcels. It starts out as 3 lots. It ends up as 3 lots. And they're legal lots. And the reason they're legal lots is they were ratified by a certificate of compliance by the town before the lot line adjustment started. This process was not appealed by the appellant, so they are 3 legal lots. Whether or not the appellant likes that or not, they are 3 legal lots. And it will remain as 3 legal lots after the lot line adjustment. Secondly, is the proposed use consistent with the general plan? Yes, it's low-density residential and will remain so with no new construction proposed as this project. Is the proposal consistent with the district zoning? Yes, it is, and if you read staff analysis, which is about 15 pages long, you'll see that it meets all of the requirements for an R120 zoning lot. Each of the lots reflects that. And we chose to offer the dedication in order to make our lots work. Just like we looked at the width, we looked at the depth, we looked at everything else on the lot, on the various lots, and said, we have to make this work. Obviously, when you look at the end of Worcester Lane, you can see that it wasn't intended to end like that. So we just put a cul-de-sac bulb there as an offer. If you approve this, we will be asked to make that dedication formal so that it will become ultimately a cul-de-sac for the access for lots 2 and 3. So my only conversations with the appellant about this project have revolved around the resulting view from their backyard and what they will be able to see if houses were built there, or a house on lot 2. They like the park-like setting. They would like to keep it like that. I don't think that's a reason for appealing this lot line adjustment. I think it's very unfair on Mr. Von Kanel and the other owner. So I ask you to deny the appeal yet again and allow the project to proceed. I think it's reasonably straightforward in that we have met all the rules for the lot line adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions for you. I don't see any. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So we'll now invite comments from the members of the public as part of this public portion of the meeting. And if you've not already turned in a card, please do so. And meanwhile, do we have anyone on Zoom, Mr. Paulson?
Thank you, Chair. Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom.
And I see that we do have somebody who's joining by telephone, and so if you are participating by calling in, you can press #2 on your telephone keypad to raise your hand.
I don't see any raised hands, Chair.
All right. So we'll proceed, and under our rules of procedure, we have the appellant who will speak next, and then we'll give, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, the applicant, somewhat counterintuitively, will give the next presentation up to 3 minutes, should you wish to.
And we do again have
Yes.
Shannon Jones available.
Shannon will take this 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. My name is Shannon Jones, and I represent the appellant, or the respondents, I guess. The applicants is a better way to put it. A few comments, a few things that I would like to point out that I would appreciate you considering. First, the appellant is trying to frame this application or this project as a development project, not as a lot line adjustment. And they are vastly different, as your staff and your council have pointed out. By trying to call it a development project, they are trying to wedge it into CEQA. And that is legally inaccurate, as staff has pointed out, as well as your own counsel. We have provided a letter, my office, with case law supporting the position of the town. This is not a development project at this stage. It is a lot line adjustment. And I found it very interesting that when I listened to the appellant's attorney speak, the first comment that he made was the only purpose of this project was for the construction of a substandard residence. Residence is not before you today. Development is not in front of you today. And in fact, he made, to my count, at least 5 to 6 references to a development and a development application. This is not in front of you as a development application. It is in front of you as a lot line adjustment. And as such, most of, if not all of the appellant's comments are inapplicable. Virtually every single one of them doesn't apply, because what is not being applied for is a development as they want to make it. It's a lot line adjustment. It is very simple, very straightforward. There are 3 existing lots. They're asking to move the lot lines, move the boundaries of those, which is exactly what Government Code Section 66412D is designed for. CEQA legally doesn't apply, and I would suggest to you that nothing else that has been raised is applicable either. Now, let me make one comment about the staff report. The appellant wants to say that the staff report changed. That's not true. When it comes to the access point, that is inaccurate. In the first report, they noted the access point and wanted to change it. In the second one, they recognized that there was an access point. So it was not a change in position as the appellant wants to argue. It was a further review and clarification.
I'm sorry very much, but you're out of time. I'll ask if commissioners have any questions for you, Ms. Jones. And I'm not seeing any. Thank you for being online and your presentation. And now we'll give the appellant another 3 minutes to add any comments that you or your attorney wish to make. Sir, are you there to make your rebuttal?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. To be very clear, We have not. I have not suggested that before you is a project, is a development project, or that you are being asked to approve a house or three. What I am suggesting, however, is that you are being asked to, as a condition of this lot line adjustment, in order to ensure that it complies with your own regulation as it applies to frontage, to approve the cul-de-sac, which the applicant was very clear that that's going to be the access point to these lots. And were it not to be the access point to these lots, it couldn't be used to satisfy the frontage requirement. So there is a line, you know precisely where that access point is going to be. And by approving this lot line adjustment, including the condition of the dedication of that easement, you are essentially fixing the entrance, a new entrance that doesn't exist now, to both of these lots 2 and 3. And any future development proposed for these two lots will assume and will include the access point as its entry point to the two lots. So that's going to be fixed. Your staff has not told you how many trees will have to be cut, what the slope is going to be, how that's going to affect the drainage in this area, and or any of that. All of that is being deferred to when the applicant will come back with plans for these houses, except that you have already decided to allow the easement, to allow the access point, and that if you take away nothing else from this presentation, just please consider that by approving the easement, by approving a new cul-de-sac, which is going to be forever the access point for these two lots, you have made a discretionary decision that is capable of affecting the environment, and as such will trigger it. It will require environmental review under CEQA. And as you saw, applicant's attorney nor staff had any explanation to give you as to why the town has changed its legal analysis and conclusions, even though the project hasn't changed. That's a classic abuse of discretion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions by commissioners for you? No? Doesn't look like it. Thank you very much for your rebuttal statement. We'll now close the public portion of the public hearing and ask if commissioners have questions for staff, wish to comment on the appeal, or introduce a motion for consideration. Commissioner Janet.
Thank you. Question for staff. According to the appellant's attorney just now, the easement for the cul-de-sac, he's saying the easement for the cul-de-sac is before the Planning Commission tonight. Would you please clarify whether that is or is not the case?
What's before the commission tonight is whether or not the lots would have adequate street frontage. And the applicant's application demonstrates that there will be adequate street frontage to serve the lots.
So just to follow up, the applicant is demonstrating adequate frontage with a certain configuration provided. However, that is not necessarily the final configuration of the cul-de-sac or the access points or the frontage. Is that correct?
I could jump in on this. There are no improvements proposed with this application.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hanson.
I had the same question, but a follow-up question on that same issue. Who has to agree to the easement? Because it is a condition of approval upon which the zoning would depend.
So it's being offered as part of the project application, and the town would need to accept the easement.
So there isn't a third party in the neighborhood that would be involved. It's from the applicant to the town.
That's correct.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? Commissioner Hanson.
I was wondering if staff could comment again on the cul-de-sac. that the aspect of the condition of approval offering an easement, whether that would be subject to CEQA or not.
My opinion is that it's not, because the cul-de-sac is being offered to demonstrate that the application meets the town's building and zoning standards. And that's one of the criteria that need to be determined in order to approve or deny a lot line adjustment. The town needs to make the determination that the town's building and zoning ordinances have been satisfied.
Understood. And then I believe Commissioner Janep already asked the question that when actual application were to come in, if an actual application is to come in, it would be at that time that there would be a review of how that is architected and laid out and so on.
That is correct.
If it would be helpful to the commission, I could address the question about why the town relied on a different statute the first time around. Okay.
Please do.
So when the application was first submitted, the town used Government Code Section 66474 to review the application. And that Government Code section relates to applications for parcel maps and tentative maps. And so as we were reviewing the record of this matter, it became clear that the town should instead have used the statute for lot line adjustments, since that was what was being sought. And so under 66474, approval of a tentative or parcel map is in fact a discretionary action that is subject to CEQA. However, the lot line adjustment is not a discretionary action subject to CEQA.
I have some questions, and then we'll see if commissioners have others. Is there statutory or case law specifically providing that in the event of a conflict between CEQA and the Subdivision Map Act, that the Map Act controls?
I'm not aware of any cases holding that specifically, but I will say that the appellants have cited CEQA guidelines section 15305, which is a CEQA exemption. And the CEQA exemptions kick in once a determination has been made that a project is subject to CEQA in the first instance. And here, Public Resources Code Section 21080 provides that ministerial decisions are not subject to CEQA. And in turn, Government Code Section 66412 describes a ministerial approval process in which the town is reviewing an application against a set of prescribed standards.
Okay, thank you. And I have a further question. The town code specifies that certain actions are ministerial, but it doesn't refer to lot line adjustments in that statute. Do you have a comment about that?
I would say it would be a best practice to have the town code identify a lot line adjustment as a ministerial action. But in the absence of that, there is case law standing for the proposition that lot line adjustment applications are ministerial decisions.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, which may be obvious, but I'll ask it anyway. The commissioners in their deliberations may consider the legal analysis of the applicant's attorney, Shannon Jones, in our deliberations tonight.
The commission can consider any evidence that's been placed before them. And there was reference made to a letter that was submitted by the appellant's attorney at 4 o'clock today. If it would be helpful to the commission in these deliberations, I could go through the arguments of those letters and provide you with the town's analysis.
That would be very helpful if you would proceed. I'd appreciate it.
So the first argument is that a lot line adjustment is not a ministerial action. And it discusses how the town exercises considerable judgment to shape the lot line adjustment. And so my reaction to that is that, in fact, the town is assessing the application for a lot line adjustment against the standards that are set forth in Government Code Section 66412. And so the town is using fixed standards and objective measurements, and as a result, the decision is ministerial and not subject to CEQA. And then the second point raised in the letter was also raised in the testimony, and it was asking why the town had relied on a common sense exemption when the lot line adjustment was submitted several years ago. And as we discussed, that's because the original application was processed under a statute dealing with parcel and tentative maps. And this time around, it's being processed pursuant to the lot line adjustment statute. And then the third point raised in the letter is that the town is governed by CEQA guidelines section 15305, which exempts only certain lot line adjustments from CEQA. And so my analysis of that is that the CEQA exemptions, which CEQA guideline 15305 is a CEQA exemption, come into play when a project has been determined to be subject to CEQA in the first instance. Here, the lot line adjustment decision is ministerial, and there's other CEQA guidelines that stand for the proposition that ministerial decisions are not subject to CEQA in the first instance. And then the fourth point raised in the letter is that the town's decision to approve the lot line adjustment with conditions constitutes an exercise of judgment. The town's analysis of that is that the applicant submitted a application that shows dedication of an easement to provide the requisite street frontage. And so the town is imposing that condition to hold the applicant to that offer and to ensure that the application will in fact conform with the town's building and zoning standards.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And I think we're ready to move on with Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you. This is a question for staff. Thank you, Chair. When we're approving lot line adjustments, do all the new lots have to have adequate frontage and access? And is that why we're talking about the cul-de-sac here?
Yes, in accordance with 66412D, all provisions of the town zoning code need to be complied with. Street frontage is one of the provisions of the town zoning code.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to move on to Commissioner comments on the appeal. Thank you. Commissioner Janoff.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just start by saying it seems clear to me from the evidence that we have tonight, from the staff report, that the request is a fairly straightforward lot line adjustment request. It's clear that it's ministerial. It's clear that CEQA doesn't apply. And it's clear that the lot line adjustment does, to me, meet the requirements under section 66412D. I don't see a conflict with what the applicant is asking for, and so I would be inclined to deny the appeal at this time.
Thank you. Other comments? Commissioner Espy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would join in Commissioner Janoff's interpretation and understanding of this application. I would also join her in denying the appeal. And I would further like to thank staff and council specifically. This is an extraordinarily detailed and complex matter dealing in some minutia, and I think you've done an exemplary job in explaining it to this committee. So thank you again for your efforts, and again, I would join Commissioner Janoff in that denial.
Thank you. Other commissioners wish to comment? Commissioner Hanson.
I concur with the comments of Commissioner Janoff and our Vice Chair. And I would also say that that one of the really important points that was made by the applicant, Mr. Jeans, is that these are and will continue to be legal lots. They were determined to be legal lots via certificate of compliance. And if you go through the details of the staff report, as was the case before when we saw this last time, and as the case now, This lot line adjustment is rectifying some things that will make the lots more in conformance with our town code and general plan. I do wanted to say to the appellant and the other people that are objecting to this that it certainly is a scary thought that there might be development, but this is only an application for a lot line adjustment. Should there be any application going forward, as was mentioned in the staff report, there will be a very detailed architecture and site application and on all kinds of review that will come with that. But that's not what's in front of us, and we can't put other things on the table that aren't on the table in front of us. We can only take the application as is and the evidence that was presented to us. And so I concur with my fellow commissioners that there's plenty of evidence in the staff report and in the hearing tonight to deny the appeal and approve the lot line adjustment.
Thank you. Further comments? Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, I will not be supporting this. I don't feel this is a clear lot line adjustment situation, mainly because we're talking about a cul-de-sac that is not normally in a clearly defined lot line project. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Armour, I believe you had a comment about the possible form of the motion should the commission wish to deny the appeal.
Thank you for that question. I think you can turn to the staff report recommendations section near the end, right before the attachments. It does lay out the recommendation and the findings, but specifically recommending, based on what I've heard so far, it sounds like the motion would likely be to deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the Development Review Committee, but specifically we would like you to reference attachments.
So yeah, the exhibits 2 for all the required determinations, exhibit 3 for the conditions of approval, and exhibits 6 and 7 for the application materials.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Yes, Chair, can I clarify, did I state that correctly? I would support the appeal.
You would support the appeal?
Yes, and so it sounds like there may be a motion forthcoming and then a second, and then we'll ask for the votes of all the council members, and your vote will be recorded.
Well, I think I have it backwards. I am not supporting the what's before us. I'm not.
Based on your comments, it sounded like you would not be supporting a motion to deny the appeal.
That you are in support of the appeal and therefore not in support of the lot line adjustment that is
I'm not
proposed.
in support of the lot line adjustment.
Correct. Yes. No, that is understood.
I'm sorry. It was confusing for me.
It is.
Thank you.
Commissioner Janoff.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Thank you. I move to deny the appeal, uphold the decision of the DRC, and approve lot line adjustment application M-23-001 for consideration under Section 66412D of the Subdivision Map Act. I find that the approval of the lot line adjustment is ministerial under SEQA Exhibit 2. I can find the required determinations regarding compliance with Section 66412D of the Subdivision Map Act and are hereby adopted and confirmed, Exhibit 2, and approved lot line adjustment application M-23-001, superseding the town's approval of the previous lot line adjustment application M-20-012 with the modified draft conditions of approval contained in Exhibit 3, the diagram showing existing and proposed parcel configurations in Exhibit 7, and all other related materials and attachments. I didn't mention Exhibit 6, but I can include that if you need it.
You're covered. All other relevant application materials. Thank you for checking.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Hanson.
I second the motion.
And discussion by the commission? I don't see any, so we'll go ahead and take a roll call on the motion, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Janoff.
Yes.
Commissioner Burnett,
No.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Respi, excuse me, and I vote in favor of the motion, so it passes 4-1. And I would believe there's appeal rights on this, but
That is correct.
Please confirm.
The decision of the commission can be appealed to town council by any interested person as defined by Town Code Section 2910-020 within 10 days on forms available online and fees paid. Final deadline is 4 p.m. on the 10th day.
Thank you very much. And so now we'll move on to other business on our agenda. And tonight we have item 3, which is a study session to discuss revisions to I'm going to wait for leave the chambers. Oh, okay. Thank you. Tonight we have a study session to discuss revisions to a previously considered project requesting approval of a planned development for a senior living community, removal of large protected trees, and site improvements requiring grading on property zoned RPD located at 110 Wood Road, APN 510-47038. An environmental impact report and mitigation monitoring and reporting program has been prepared for this project, and its plan development application PD-20-001 and environmental impact report EIR-21-002. And the applicant is Frank Rockwood, and the property owner is Covia Communities, and the project planner is Sean Mullen.
And on behalf of the project planner, Jennifer Armour, planning manager, I will be presenting the staff report.
Oh, please proceed.
All right, thank you. So as stated, this is a project at 110 Wood Road. The site has been occupied by the Los Gatos Meadows since 1971 as a senior living development that was approved under Plan Development Ordinance 196 in 1968. It closed in September of 2019. There was an application filed in February of 2020 to request a new plan development for the property for the proposed purpose of building a new senior living community. In January of 2022, the Planning Commission considered that application and forwarded a recommendation of denial to Council based on the following concerns: the proposed building heights, tree removal, lack of diversity in housing types, concentration of luxury housing units, ratio of number of units that was fewer than the existing to the overall height greater than the existing. On April 5th of 2022, the Town Council considered the application as well as several options presented by the applicant and developed in response to the concerns by the Planning Commission. The Town Council comments on those options included but are not limited to continued concerns with the proposed heights, tall wall planes, and lack of screening, appreciative of the applicant's regard for fire safety, preference for two of the options, options A and B, that were presented at that meeting, support for removal of the penthouse units, but not supportive of removal of parking to reduce grading, providing a full set of drawings and details of revised project would be required. The application was remanded back to Planning Commission for further discussion and consideration of these comments. The applicant, as part of working to respond to those comments, has requested the opportunity to present to Planning Commission a revised submittal in a conceptual fashion prior to submitting a full resubmittal. Those plans are included as Exhibit 1 to the staff report. Following this study session and the feedback given here, the applicant will be asked to prepare a formal resubmittal for staff review prior to further consideration by Planning Commission and Town Council. An addendum was provided with public comments. This concludes staff's presentation, but be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from my fellow commissioners? I don't see any. Thank you very much. So we'll now open the public portion of the public meeting and invite the applicant to make a presentation on the revised project for up to 5 minutes. And we have cards from Frank Rockwood, and Chris Eichen. And do you want to speak sequentially? Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Echian, and I'm representing Front Porch, or Los Gatos Meadows, and I'm here to give the first part of an update about where we are today. As we heard, the Town Council, we had a meeting in April of 2022, and at that time we were asked to come back to the Planning Commission and hear what you have here today. So that's why we're here today, to get feedback from you all, and we're expected to come back with an updated formal submittal. We've heard lots of feedback regarding our project, but one of the most overwhelming ones we heard from our neighbors and you all and the Town Council is the visual impact of the new meadows. So that's why we're here today. We've got lots of questions about why it's taking so long, what's the update, and really the reason for that is that Covia, affiliated with Front Porch, another not-for-profit organization in California, and with that we had interim executive management, so that kind of delayed the process a little bit for us. Also with that, the increase in construction costs and insurance rates have us reevaluating our project as well. But I'm happy to report that effective April of this year, we have a new CEO, Sean Kelly, and he's really lit a fire under this project and have us jump starting it again. So that's why we're here today. Frank is going to go over a little bit of the details about how we're looking at reducing the visual impacts and still trying to maintain our feasibility. Thank you.
Thank you. And I should have pointed out that there's a 5-minute limit for both speakers, so please proceed.
Go to slide 4 for me. So I want to reiterate that we are here to seek feedback. So the concept plan that we're proposing, that we're putting forth tonight, is a work in progress. So we are now proposing 186 independent living units, and 24 care units. Chris kind of mentioned the challenge with construction pricing going up quite dramatically, interest rates going up dramatically, so we're challenged to kind of make the feasibility work. So that's kind of causing us to look at pushing that independent living unit number higher. I should point out that the care units would take the exact same footprint of the prior proposal. So we're just looking at potentially doubling up some of those spaces or making those spaces kind of more efficient to accommodate more residents. Next slide. So as I indicated, scale is a key issue. So the team has worked hard to identify where we might be able to add scale. And we looked at renovating those existing cottages that kind of, if you look at the image on the left, the lower portion, we have those 2 existing cottages that were mothballed quite a while ago that kind of hang out over that hill. We looked at going up the hill, and we concluded that anything that kind of goes off of the development pad would be very detrimental in terms of additional impact on tree removals and grading. So we have kind of stuck to the existing development pad. And in fact, the development pad is a little bit tighter than the existing community that's built there today. There are lots of tree removal and tree replacement in our proposal. And I just need to clarify, that's not because our development pad is getting bigger. It's almost entirely due to meeting fire standards. And most of that tree impact is actually just planned south of that Villa B and Villa C. Next slide, please. We look forward to having the opportunity to kind of answer detailed questions. We have a more thorough response letter that was in the package, the agenda package. Generally, there's lots of different perspectives on it. There's lots of issues, but as Chris said, visual impact is a key issue that keeps coming up over and over again from neighbors, from this group, from the town council, et cetera. It's impossible to kind of reconcile everybody's perspective on this, but there has been a pattern of concern about the visual impact of the front portion of the site. So we're generally proposing to move massing from the front of the site to the rear of the site. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide. We also are proposing to remove the penthouse units and reduce the average square footage of the units. Next slide. To modestly decrease the amount of off-fall. Next slide, please. And then finally, one more slide. we hope to acquire 142 South Santa Cruz next week. We think there's an opportunity to do a lot of community-facing offerings in that building. I can elaborate on that if there's questions. Thank you.
I was going to say, as chair, I have the option of allowing you to have additional time to speak because it is a big project and we want to make sure that you have full representation of the comments from the commission. So now I've kind of taken you off your script.
Okay, great.
Would you like to speak further, or Mr. Ichin?
Yeah, actually, I would love to speak a little bit further on this last line.
Okay, good. So let's say it's another 5 minutes.
Oh, great. So one of the things we've heard from this group, from the commission, was, hey, it's all well and good in terms of the services and the wellness offerings and the activities and the educational programs that we offer for our residents. But what about the rest of the community? What are the offerings to the rest of the community? And one of the challenges with that is these communities are people's homes. So while it's not technically a condominium structure, they're not technically homeowners, they feel like this is their home. And so there are limitations on kind of, certainly they invite guests, we invite guests, we have guest programming on the property. We have many of these communities throughout the state of California. Our client does. But there's limits to that. And furthermore, there's access challenges with this particular property. So the building at the foot of Wood Road, we've been asking for years now if that could be available to purchase, and that owner finally decided he was ready to sell. We entered into contract about 2 months ago. We released a due diligence contingency. We're expecting to close next week. It's about 4,000 square feet. We think that's going to be an excellent location to offer services. We have lots of capabilities as an organization, Front Porch does. Front Porch really has basically 3 business lines. One is market rate senior housing, this project that we're talking about tonight, affordable housing, and social outreach, social outreach services. And so this is something that we're not trying to figure out or build capabilities from scratch. We have all kinds of offerings. Actually, I'm going to ask you to go back one slide to slide 11. And this is in the package as well. So this is kind of a summary of our current offerings. And we think some of these offerings, as is or slightly modified, might make sense to implement here in Los Gatos and actually base some of the programming and folks that offer those services. Go back to the next slide. In this new building, but we're also looking at new services, to learn about home, a demonstration center for what you can do to modify your home to make it more suitable for someone that is dealing with the aging process. This building we can have one doctor. We're allowed to have one doctor as of right in this building. So that's something we might do in partnership with the healthcare system. There's one point I want to clarify here. We're still working on lots of ideas here, and we hope to work with the community on the offering there. But our current ideas are generally all falling in line as being consistent with the existing zoning of that building. So we don't think we'll be coming back here for asking for a modification for the zoning of that building. And it's actually in very good shape. So we don't think we actually need to physically change much aside from a few interior wall relocations. So that's another kind of, we're very excited about this because again, this is something that wasn't on the table as recently as 3 months ago. And we really do think that this can be a game changer in us meeting that question, that challenge of how we can serve the broader community. And I guess I would stress that our new CEO, Sean Kelly, is particularly committed to community services.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any questions for you before you sit down. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Espy.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for again appearing before us and for redesigning your ideas and for being sensitive to what the community has offered to you by way of their thoughts. And hopefully this is a productive discussion where we can all achieve a goal that works for all of us. You mentioned that the project as currently configured anticipates 210 total units. Do you know the original Meadows project? How many units did we have in there?
Yeah, so I can go back, if you go all the way back to slide 3 or 2. That one right there, 3, slide 3. So this is a summary of the existing entitlement. So this is a CUP entitlement. It was granted in the late 1960s. It was granted for 184 independent living units and 38 skilled nursing beds. And so we're not proposing to put skilled nursing beds back in. Rather, they would be assisted living, memory care, respite care, but it's basically that function. So instead of 38, that would be 24. This particular scenario goes from 184 to 186 in terms of independent living units.
And do you remember or do you know how many parking spots were allocated under the original plan?
Yeah, it's approximately 100 is what we had available. Or does that include the offsite from the toll house? Yeah, no. Well, from the very beginning, no. But prior to close, yeah, don't know. And I don't actually. It's kind of fun to look at this document. I think it's about 5 pages, as opposed to I think we're on a couple thousand pages as part of our current application. Okay. So it's pretty light on the details.
All right. No, I appreciate it. Thank you much.
Sure.
Other questions, Commissioner Hanson?
I'd like to follow up on our vice chair's question, line of questioning about the original Meadows. What was the typical height of the buildings in the original Meadows?
So the original Meadows, I don't know the number. Well, actually, I do. So the type variation was roughly, we went up to three floors. And so now we have a proposal that goes up to 6 floors. I think if you go to advanced slide. So the back one slide. So this isn't the actual original heights, but this is the heights of our formal submittal. I think the better way to answer your question would be to reference figure 3 on page 125 of the application package, which would show you the delta of heights. So we are materially increasing heights over the existing building. We do have our team here, so I could have someone from our team give you those precise numbers as part of this meeting as well. But that exhibit on page 125, figure 3, would show you the difference between the scenario that we're contemplating right now and the existing improvements.
Okay. But basically what I heard is that we're going from what was typically 3 stories to now 6. Is that correct?
This is particular. So if you go to page 6, slide 6. So our original formal proposal had gone up to 5 stories. So from 3 to 5 stories. And what we're contemplating now is pushing some of that massing into the back. So some of those back buildings would be.
I understand that. What I was trying to understand is, I'm not thinking of the previous proposal, which we had recommended denial. Right. I was looking at where we were before you started on this new project. So, right. We're talking about a great deal more height, and right. Now it's more.
Now it's reallocated, but some places it's more. The maximum height would be more.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Janoff. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The building pad site, I can't easily see the topographical lines. Is there a differential between the buildings with the green roofs, which are going down in height from your original proposal, to the buildings with the pink roofs? Is there a topographical change in between those two areas?
So I'm not sure if I follow on the question. If you go to the next slide, slide 8. So I'm sorry, it's slide 7. So the second to last column would show you the maximum height of each of those buildings.
I'm making myself. Yeah. What I'm asking is, if you were looking at a cross section of the land,
right,
and you've got the buildings with the green roofs and the buildings with the red roofs.
Right.
Does the land go up, or does it stay flat relative to those two buildings?
Oh, okay, yeah. So if you back up a slide. So yes, the land goes up quite dramatically. Now, there's an existing building there, so there's a pad that was cleared out, a ledge, if you will, that was built into that hillside. But we are on the ascent of a hill. Am I still not answering
That
the
would be
question?
my understanding, and I was looking for confirmation of that. So in addition to it being a higher elevation topographically,
Right.
you're adding 3 more stories to that visually. So you've got added height plus height. Can you explain to the commission how our concern and the council's concern regarding the excessive height of the project is being addressed when you're adding 30 feet, when let's say you're standing in front of the Los Gatos Theater, the movie theater in town, and we're looking up at that hill, how does the added height on top of a higher elevation satisfy the concern of excessive height?
Yes. So we focused on the height that was most visible to the most people. And we did put story poles up. And again, there's all kinds of perspectives. We didn't satisfy everyone's perspective. But those buildings in the front that are green, the big one in the middle is A, the next one's B, the next one over is C, seem to be the ones that were the most visually prominent that could be seen from Main Street or could be seen farther from Broadway by many, many residents. And so the proposal is to shorten those buildings from what we had initially proposed. We don't believe that the massing in the back is as visible as it is in the front, and so we thought it would be better to reallocate the massing to the back. We do have a feasibility constraint that we're working with. We could broaden the development pad. That would be another way to go. We actually study that. That would take less pressure. That would reduce the pressure on trying to raise the height of these buildings, but with impacts on more tree removal, more, yeah.
So just to follow up, it would be very helpful in future conversations if we could see an actual elevation. This is a little bit from an aerial perspective, and so it's not particularly telling in terms of what that actual elevation is, and it would be helpful to have that in the future package.
Other questions by commissioners? I wrote down a few. Commissioner Hanson, did you have one? Oh, okay, I saw your hand up. Commissioner Janoff.
Yes. Are we doing public comments?
We're going to do that after the.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple of height things. The original height of the buildings was from 30 feet 9 inches to 55 feet 2 inches. And then the proposed in 2022 was 59 feet to 85.6 feet. And then now today with the revived submittal, Villa A, which seems to be the highest, would be 97.
Correct.
So just to clarify that. And then the parking spaces, there's going to be a total of 108 in your new project, parking and tandem parking combined.
181.
181,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
And then, let's see, before, I had it here. I don't know what I did with it. Oh, yes, before, originally, it was 111 spaces in 68, and then in 22, when it was the proposal, there was 78 standard spaces and 122 tandem. So I know that was a question that came up. Thank you.
All right, other questions before I move in? All right, let me see. I have sort of maybe a picayune comment, but on your revised red line for the EIR project description, you say that the villas will be between 3 and 5 stories, and that should be 3 to 6.
So again, we have not updated our formal application. We're previewing this change with this group and with the neighbors and with the community, with the expectation that we'll ultimately take that feedback and resubmit a formal application and update the EIR documents in sync with that.
Okay, I understand. I was
But-
just going to
But
point
right
out.
now, we haven't, whatever,
It wasn't
we're
in the
just
red
talking.
line. That's all I'm saying. Like I said, it's picking a question.
Okay.
Help me understand. Is the as I understand, there's currently 186 units at the Meadows as constructed, right? Is that correct?
That's the current entitlement. I think over time, some of those units have been combined. Some of them have been mothballed. But yes, that's the baseline entitlement.
Okay, I appreciate that distinction. So your current proposal is 19 units less? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, arguably, the independent living units and the care units could be thought of as pretty different types of units. You know, so the independent living units are apartment units with kitchens and dwelling spaces. You know, the current approval basically says skilled nursing beds. So that was kind of an infirmary kind of skilled nursing operation. We're not talking about doing that exactly, but that's kind of think of it as a healthcare center with a capacity up to what we're proposing here, 24. But you almost think of those in their own separate categories, but you can't add them together.
Understood.
But if you add them together, that's why.
Okay.
That would be true.
And do you have the total unit square footage that exists now? I was looking for that and wanted to compare it with the unit square footage under the proposal.
We certainly have it. I don't have it in this deck, and I don't have it in the application package, but it is a substantial change in square footage. So, you know, we acknowledge that. I mean, so actually, could I go to slide? Go to the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So this is information on the unit mix. So we were responsive to the prior commission's comments to change somewhat. You know, we removed the penthouse units. We did kind of change the average unit size from closer to 1,500 to 1,400 square feet. We think we had a little bit of room to do that and still be on market. The existing facility today is very much not in alignment with market. So many of those units were very tiny. Chris ran the community. Couldn't give those units away. So, you know, expectations have changed over time. We believe this is kind of more in alignment with the market. So not only has the market expectations of a unit size increased substantially since the late 1960s, but the common elements as well. And so this is even though it's the same number of, roughly speaking, we're in the same ballpark, number of units, number of staff, et cetera, we do acknowledge that we're talking about a much bigger building than is there now.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that comment. There was some comment previously regarding the unit mix, and you've got the table up there, and I have it here. So is it correct that there'll be 10 new one-bedrooms and 6 new one-bedrooms with den?
Yeah. My vision is
mine too.
Doing what it does. So yeah, we so again, we eliminated the penthouses completely. We reduced the 2-bedroom dens by 3. So again, this is, I'll restate those first 3 columns reflect what's in our formal application. So if you go to the town's website and you get all of our plans, the EIR documents, et cetera, conforms to that. What we're talking about over on the right is the scenario that we're previewing with this group and with the community tonight. So yes, it does have kind of a mix of, you know, so we increased the number of just straight 2-bedrooms slightly, but a lot more 1-bedrooms with dens.
Understood, but if I'm correct, you also are proposing 4 more 2-bedrooms.
Correct. I think that's just in that particular category. Yes.
And so in doing so, did you gave consideration to the direction from the Planning Commission?
Yes, because again, if you look at, we took out the penthouses, which are kind of even beyond 2 bedrooms.
Right.
2 bedrooms with dens are obviously the bigger versions of. So if you think of 2 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms with dens as a super category, if you will, I think we're keeping that roughly the same. And yeah, we were able to get more units and put the more units in the 1 bedroom category. So
Okay,
the average unit size has been reduced.
Okay.
So that was certainly our intent was to be responsive, but stay within the market parameters.
Understood. I have one last question. There was a comment from a member of the public, Mr. Rigoli. I don't know if you had a chance to see that, concerning possible bonding of the project because of concerns of market financing problems and an incomplete project. Do you have any comment about that?
Like a construction completion bond? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's certainly on the table. You know, we haven't gotten that far in our internal discussions. It's not uncommon to have that type of insurance layered onto these types of projects.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions from commissioners at this time? If not, we'll invite comments from the members of the public on the revised proposal. And we have one card from Ms. Julie Southern. If you'd like to come forward, please.
Hello, my name is Julie Southern. I'm at 135 Wood Road, and I've been on Wood Road since 1997. And my other neighbor, Ronnie, is here, but he has a service dog, so he can't come up and talk. So he asked me to represent. First off, I want to say thank you very much to the Meadows neighbors. They've been fantastic neighbors over the years. We were very sad that they were going to close down and go through the construction process, but we were very supportive of it for them to come back. And they've been very good about doing reviews before each session. We really appreciate that. Of course, we had one last night. And in their reaction to the meeting that we had a year and a half ago, they were reacting to the building heights, tree removal, lack of diversity in housing, et cetera, et cetera. The one item that comes up for Andy and myself is that we do understand the appreciation for the understanding of height, what was proposed a year and a half ago. And the majority of the complaints were from, that you could see it from downtown. From Andy and I's perspective, from Andy's view, it's right out his front window, not someone's backyard or down in the park. From my view, when the story poles were up, it was just right out my window. And I know it's the one that they're proposing to go up another 2 stories. If it is what we think, it's going to block my view. This is my front view, not my backyard, which is many other people's complaints, or, oh, I can see it when I'm sitting down in the park, et cetera. This is a view. So that's my only complaint. I've been a supporter of them forever, but I just wanted to make sure it was on the record and you guys understood. Did I cover everything? With the height. So.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there questions by commissioners? I don't see any. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
And comments. Do we have anyone on Zoom? Mr. Paulson?
Thank you, Chair. There are people on Zoom. No hands raised currently, but let's give it a second. If anyone would like to speak, please raise your hand. I don't see any hands, Chair.
Thank you very much. We normally give the applicant another 3 minutes to add any comments you wish, and this would be your opportunity to do that.
Thank you. So we are kind of working against the feasibility constraint. That's challenging. We are trying to be accommodating to the view impacts. The changes that we made, we certainly didn't do it with the intent that it would worsen Julie's view or Andrew's view. And it's, to be quite honest, it's a complicated site. When we put up the story polls, it was hard to actually read it, even for the people that are working with this project every day. They challenged us, and we plan to kind of respond to actually demonstrate exactly how that would affect their view lines. So we plan on, as part of this process, as we look at this scenario or as we potentially look at other scenarios, how that would affect their view lines. So again, it's a complicated process, and we're trying to be responsive here. And I guess I would close by just emphasizing we're looking for feedback. You know, we think reallocating the space, even if it results in higher buildings in the back, might be an improvement. But if you kind of feel that it'd be better to kind of minimize the maximum height, that's feedback we will try to work with. If you think we should revisit going off of the constraints of the development pad, that's certainly feedback we would contemplate and consider. So,
thank you, sir. Any further questions by commissioners? Do not see any. Thank you very much. So we'll now close the public portion of the public meeting, and I'll request commissioners to provide comments in turn. I suggest we start with Commissioner Raspy and then move on through Commissioner Janoff to myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think when this project came before us the first time, I was largely supportive of it, and we've had another recent project here where again, we're getting senior housing in the town of Los Gatos. It's a much needed resource, and I think it's only become more needed as time goes on. And so I'll just preface my comments by saying, conceptually, I want this project to happen, and I think it's gonna be a win-win for the developer and for our community. That being said, I'm not sure we've moved the ball very much with this last iteration. It seems we've still got a massing problem. And I think maybe where I think I'm going to get stuck is, I understand developer needs to make a profitable project. They're not going to be involved in creating something that's not going to work monetarily for them. At the same time, as a town, I think we want to try to keep this project as constrained as possible. And somewhere I'm hopeful that there is a meeting of those two minds. I don't think this current iteration is it. I'm concerned that by pushing massing to the back, we are helping the view corridor from Main Street, but hurting the residents of Wood Road. And I don't think that's a sacrifice we should have to make. So I would, again, like to address the height in the back. I'm thankful that we've reduced by 11.5 feet villas A in the front, B and C. I would like to see either some more reduced massing, and if that means we have to increase the size of the development pad and make it a flatter project, I think maybe that's something we could explore, as long as it doesn't create other fire or hillside dangers. But those are my initial thoughts from seeing what we've seen.
Thank you for that. And Commissioner Hanson?
I appreciate that you had brought this back for us to see. And as the Vice Chair mentioned, we definitely have a demand for senior independent living. And there is under construction right now a project off of Blossom Hill. It's down the hill. And then recently the Planning Commission and the Town Council approved another senior living development on Winchester. And I bring this up because one of the things that was a real struggle during that hearing was that they wanted an exception to the height to go up to 50 feet. And so, and I remember when we heard this the first time, I think I asked the question about what is the maximum height of any building that we have in Los Gatos, and this is the proposal before was higher than that, and now it's more. And so I'm gonna say, while I think that some progress was made in the unit mix, we're not even in the zone of reasonable for height with our town standards for height. And 85 feet was just bizarre, and now it's 97. And so I'm just not feeling that we're going in the right direction at all. And I think, it needs to be looked at. And I asked about the original woods, and I understand that needs to be remodeled and updated and all that kind of thing. But we have two senior living developments, one under development and one just recently approved, that we're talking about 3 stories, and so not 6. And so I think we got to think more about being in line with the other kinds of developments we're doing in town, not creating new standards, because I don't think any of our residents want to see 6-story buildings of any kind in town. So I'm hoping you can go back to the drawing board and see if there's another way to make this happen and make your numbers work, but not go up that high in height.
Thank you. Commissioner Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with fellow commissioners' feelings on this project. I really can't add to anything. If you look at the Planning Commission meeting on January 12th, 2022, and then the Town Council meeting on April 5th of 2022, height was one of the major concerns, and now we see that the height has increased. And as was mentioned, we do have 2 new senior care facilities coming online with the town. So there's not really any more comments I would make, just to concur with my fellow commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And Commissioner Janet.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't see enough of an improvement relative to what was formerly proposed previously. And I'm not certain that the view corridor from Main Street is improved by moving the height back to the rear buildings. It's not at all clear to me that they wouldn't be just as visible. I mean, you're talking about a relatively short distance between the 2 buildings compared to where one would be downtown. So it's not clear to me that that would be satisfied. And then certainly we wouldn't want to exacerbate the neighbors' concerns by adding height right out their front window. So I don't think that that's been satisfied. I would suggest looking at a broader building pad. You're going to be removing trees anyway for fire safety. So removal of trees is probably not the same issue that it has been in years past for the town. So I would encourage you to look at that, broadening your project, lowering your height. Part of my previous comments had to do with the square footage of the units. I don't understand your terms when you say our market steady or our market, what we're trying to hit, and you do, and that's fine. But the market that the 2 projects Los Gatos has approved is looking at units that are substantially smaller in square footage than those we've proposed. My comment last time was that you are satisfying the needs of a relatively small and obviously wealthier population who would be residing in these units at the expense of the rest of the town. And that doesn't work for me as a commissioner for the town. So I think you can look at the size of your units. A 1,400 square foot average size is a small house. It's a lot for a couple of seniors. I have personal experience with my mom looking at many communities in this area. There's nothing like that size square footage except maybe 10% of the units in some of these communities. It's very unusual to have such large units. And I can also tell you from personal experience that as these individuals age in these communities, they're concerned for that you may have a continuum of care model, so I'm not sure how your funding is going to work. But there's always a concern about, am I going to have enough money? And the cost of these units on a monthly basis is extremely high. Without these sorts of amenities, I can't imagine what they would look like with these. So I'm concerned about the overall size and what that would do. So I would encourage you to go back, reduce the overall height, reduce the size of the units. I mean, I'm really not seeing much of a reduction. You've gone from 1493 to 1414 as an average. However, I'm really pleased that you removed the penthouses. That seemed to be the most egregious part of the project from my standpoint. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for being sensitive to that. I think that concludes my comments. Oh, except that in future conversations, again, more perspective on what these buildings would look like. I think the proposal last time had a lot of glass. I was concerned about the glazing on the balconies because those are going to reflect light at some point in various places when the light catches it. If these units were below the view line of neighbors. Could still be higher, but depending upon how you design them, do they blend into the hillside or do they stand out? What's the, what do they look like? What are the materials of use? So those kind of details would be important going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Janoff. And I have a few thoughts to share as well. I believe that the investigation of the expansion of the development plan would be very interesting to look at, because we do have a continuing problem with the height and visibility of the project. I share Commissioner Janoff's earlier comment that we need some kind of perspective of what the project would appear from downtown. Story poles I know are expensive. We're now talking about digital presentations, which would be very helpful going forward. I think we need a more explicit statement. I know you're just getting started with the Santa Cruz property, Santa Cruz Avenue property, but I personally would be looking for more of an explicit understanding of how that relates to the on-site services, for example. And I still have a concern about the second exit for emergency evacuation. That was brought up before. And I would be looking for more detail on transportation issues. I know you previously talked about the automatic pedestrian tram, which I thought was a creative idea, but there's also been consideration of van services, concierge services, and the like. It'd be good to know more about that. And the reduction in the grading is appreciated. I'm concerned about the parking. I know the town council was very concerned about the grading, but compared to our typical standard for senior housing parking, as per my calculation, there's a shortage of 39%, which is a big factor. That's all I had. Other commissioners? Commissioner Janoff.
Yeah, I did want to loop back about the front porch and didn't have a chance to talk about that. It's a great idea. We did talk about how this project would serve the community at large, and so I think that's a great step. What I would recommend is that you coordinate the services or what you're thinking about providing at Front Porch with the senior or the Community Health and Senior Services Commission in town, so that these the needs of the town are known and served most efficiently.
Other final comments? It looks not like we don't have any, so I'm going to close the study session. I want to thank you very, very much for the opportunity for the Planning Commission to give you this feedback and the opportunity for us to review the new proposal. So again, thank you for coming tonight. And with that, I assume there's no appeal rights since it's a study.
That is correct.
Thank you. So move on in our agenda. The next item is the report from the planning manager on behalf of the Community Development Department.
Thank you. Since the last meeting of the Planning Commission, which was September 13th, of course, other business has continued to move forward with the town. So the town council did consider an appeal of the Winchester Assisted Living project that we were mentioning earlier. The appeal was denied and the decision to approve that project was upheld. The town council also had a discussion about the fire safe regulations process, often referred to as PRC 4290, and based on the description of the process and the work with the Santa Clara County Fire Department, no changes were made at this time to that process, but we were encouraged to work with Santa Clara County Fire to ensure that there would be more transparency, predictability, a number of other things to make sure that that process continues to work as best possible. The rezoning and general plan amendment for the project at 15810 Los Gatos Boulevard that was recommended by Planning Commission was approved by Town Council. There has been additional progress on the town's housing element. The Housing Element Advisory Board met on September 28th. The revised draft of the housing element was submitted to the state, HCD, on October 2nd, and comments are expected from the state by December 1st. The housing element overlay zone that is associated with the housing element is currently under review by Town Council. Its ongoing consideration will continue at their next meeting, November 7th. Also on November 7th, Town Council will be considering the accessory dwelling units ordinance. The story poll discussion was started on August 1st with Town Council, but will be continued, the discussion will continue on December 5th. And the final thing that I wanted to share this evening is that the town's currently open for commission recruitments, and this does include several positions on the Planning Commission. We have one vacant position and 2 commissioners whose terms are ending. Hopefully they will both reapply. The deadline for those submittals is the 4 p.m. on Friday, November 10th. Interviews will be December 6th. You can find the information about it on the board's, commissions, and committees website on the town's website, or reach out to the town clerk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from commissioners? I don't see any. On the 4290 discussion, did the question come up about the state making it clearer? Because I know the fire representative here before, when we had that issue, was sympathetic to the applicant's position that they didn't need to repave the whole street for the benefit of the whole neighborhood. Was there any discussion along those lines?
So the discussion focused a lot on what the process is and how Santa Clara County Fire works with applicants to try and find solutions that make incremental improvements, and doing that integrated into the town's process. There isn't any new feedback or clarification from the state at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now move on to, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hanson.
I might have missed it when you were running through everything, but has the council heard the housing element general or amendments that are needed to the general plan? Have they considered that yet?
So the housing element overlay zone amendments, they did start that discussion, but no decision has been made on those. That discussion will continue at their next meeting, November 7th.
On November 7th, thank you.
All right, so we'll now go on to subcommittee reports. And in addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the commission serve on several committees. They are the Housing Element Advisory Board, the Historic Preservation Committee, and the Conceptual Development Advisory Committee. And I can report that the Conceptual Development Advisory has not met since our last report. And so we're looking for reports from GPAC or Historic Preservation. We could start with GPAC.
Actually, there's the Housing Element Advisory Board and also the General Plan Committee, both of which have met since our last Planning Commission meeting. As Ms. Armour mentioned, the Housing Element Advisory Board reviewed the latest draft of the housing element, which was submitted to the state for review. And hopefully this time will be a successful one for us. And then a couple of weeks ago, the General Plan Committee met because an applicant on Shannon Road that has it's been a horse farm and it's previously been agriculture, was wanting to change the land use designation in the general plan from agriculture to basically housing, hillside residential. And so there was a lively discussion, and I think the consensus was to not approve that or recommend approval of that to the other deciding bodies, being the Planning Commission and the Town Council, because it wasn't clear to what extent housing was going to be feasible, and the initial mitigated declaration wasn't done. People were feeling uncomfortable just making a decision to change the land use designation without seeing more of the whole picture, even though it wasn't the purview of general plan committee to review all that, it was uncomfortable. So the majority of the committee did not recommend to pass that along, and was hopeful that it could be considered with the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner Burnett, do you have something on historic preservation?
Yes, we had a Historic Preservation Committee meeting today at 4, and we had 4 applications, and they were all approved with comments, and one was just with comments. But the good news is we were able to retain one of our properties in our historic resources, our inventory. So that's good news. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So finally, I want to extend, as always, my sincere appreciation for staff's hard work and for my fellow commissioners who worked hard and had excellent input today. And if there's no other business, I'll call the meeting adjourned.